Next thing I'm going to do is take these bolts out, install a new gasket, the water pump plate, another gasket, the little key right here. I'll put some grease on the key to hold it in place, and then I'll put the water pump itself on top of that, and then the water pump housing, and then I'll torque it down with the final bolts. So I'm getting ready to put the water pump housing back on. I'm trying to clean up all these surfaces. I got the old gasket off, and just to true up the surface, I've got a piece of fine sandpaper on a solid flat surface, and I'm just taking the old gasket material, whatever I couldn't get off with a knife, I've taken it off. So I'll clean these guys up and then put them back on. So looking at the manual and with the prop shaft facing out that way, I've got the diagram in the same orientation. This shows the orientation of the metal plate, the washer, the metal plate, and the other washer that go underneath the actual water pump impeller. So I'm going to show you how that goes. You want to first put gasket like that with that little tab facing like that. This metal plate on top with the little thingamajig there at like 3 o'clock. Gasket on top with the little tab like that. Pick them all up. And that's how they're going to sit right on there. Okay. So you got, and again, there's the prop shaft out there. So you got gasket like that. Plate like that. Gasket like that. Okay. After that, and I am going to actually, just because I'm well, spent quite a bit of time trying to get this thing to seal without sealant, I am going to put a tiny bit of sealant around this thing. This is less critical if it leaks, because all that happens if this thing leaks is you'll have less water pressure for the water pumping through the head, but I can't imagine it being significant even if there was a pinhole leak in this thing. But just out of you know, good practice, I want this pressure to be as high as possible flowing through the head. So I am going to put a little bit of gasket sealant on each of these gaskets, and just to make sure they do not leak. Here's a quick little display of what can happen when your water pump wears out. When I took it apart, the broken off fins were actually in the housing with it. They did not pump up through the motor, which is good to at least find them. But this was all chewed up, either from running the pump out of water, or maybe it's just really old. Other things to look for: even if all the fins are there, you can bend them back and forth and see if there are any cracks. In fact, I can actually see light, there we go, through the metal and the rubber fin, like the metal there you go, right in the center. Anyway, this water pump is cooked. Okay, so I've got a gasket, the metal plate, another gasket. I took the 2 gaskets off and put just a very thin skim of sealant on each surface of the gasket, and then put them down there. And then I dropped the water pump impeller on here, and you see that little plastic key right there? That guy right there was worn out, and what I did was I just kind of sat him in there. Of course, with 2 hands I can't get it. And there's a keyway in the water pump impeller, and I sat on top and it didn't kind of go in. But if you take a little screwdriver, you just kind of poke that guy right in. Easy to do with 2. There. See that? Anyway, the key's now in there, and I know that because when I turn this pump, it doesn't really want to spin on the shaft. And now the next thing to do is take the housing and slide the housing down over top of that. Now there's a trick here, and see how the impeller fin is actually over that part of the gasket, and on this side too? Well, it won't be once that impeller gets squeezed into the impeller housing. So I'm taking the housing, sliding it over there, and now what you want to do is, that's the way the housing goes, by the way. The housing output, the drive shaft, and then the shift shaft go in that order. It doesn't go like this, not like that, like this. All right. So what you want to do is turn this drive shaft the same way that the engine's going to turn it, and those fins will bend and slide up in there. And in fact, I'm going to put a little grease on there. It probably doesn't even need to be there, but I'm going to just grease those fins a little bit. before I turn it, just so they go in easier. Okay, so we have to figure out which way the motor's going to turn, and I don't know if all outboard motors turn the same way, but probably a large number of them turn the same way, maybe all. And you can see here a little notch in the flywheel, and that's so that you can put a piece of cord through there and then wrap it like this, and then pull it like that, which means the flywheel will go like this. And to prove that, I'll just engage the pull cord, and there it goes. So from the sky looking down on an outboard, it spins clockwise, which means the crankshaft spins clockwise, which means the drive shaft spins clockwise. So under normal circumstances, well, under all circumstances when the engine's running, this drive shaft is going to spin clockwise, looking down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little downward pressure. By the way, I took this up and I greased the inside of this housing right here. I'm going to put a little downward pressure on that, not a lot, because I don't want to bend these fins and damage them. And I'm going to turn that crankshaft, which will cause these fins to bend and slide up in there. And when I do that, this housing's going to drop down. There we go, and it's in. Whew. So what I'm going to do now is tighten up these bolts. I can't underscore enough, do not pull this shaft out when that is up. Do not pull that up. Now it probably won't come up. Well, it should come up because of that clip I told you about. But if you pull this shaft up before that's installed, you'll be taking the gears out of the bottom again to reset that shift shaft. So don't do it.